Welcome to the Grassman Chronicles. We are your hosts, Trees from LookAtTheTrees. And I'm Dave of the Captive Desk. And also join us in welcoming a special guest panelist tonight, Stephanie Helms.
Hey, Stephanie.
We invited her on as an expert on sailing because if you don't know, she is a sailor and she does it competitively. And you might also catch her on her channel, Making Sails. She does the seamstress stuff, sewing them all up, cutting them, everything. It's fascinating to watch. If you want to know how a sail is made, you can find out, check it out, and I'll be sure to put her link in the description here when we get done. Welcome, Stephanie. Good to see you.
Great to be here. Thanks. I just got back from Christmas Cove and putting those sails on the boat. So there you go.
Nice. So we are going to talk about some sea monsters in this episode. And Trees and I think we both said at the same time, we need to ask Stephanie to see if she'll come on because that's our sailing expert in the YouTube community here, and she agreed to come on, so we appreciate it very much.
Well, yeah, thanks. I don't know much about the monsters, but you know.
Well, we need somebody that knows about the sea, so you got the sea part covered. So we'll kind of try to decipher the monster part as we go along. All right, so here at the Grassman Chronicles, we like to cover all kinds of otherworldly claims, as well as Grassman stories. And there will be more Bigfoot stories to come. We have some really good ones planned out coming up this winter. And, you know, we love Bigfoot here, but we also like covering other things too. And the sea monsters just came to mind. Something came across my feed the one day and we were talking about it. And so we just said, well, let's do some sea monsters. So we're going to do some sea monsters. So our first story is going to be on the Kraken. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the Kraken. It's been in a lot of movies and everything. And Trees is going to tell us about the Kraken. So Trees, the deck is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's rare that a cryptid is found to exist in reality, but that's exactly what we're dealing with when it comes to the case of the Kraken. According to Scandinavian folklore of the 12th century, particularly the account of Sverre Sigurdsson, who became king of Norway in 1184, there is a monster stalking the waters and fjords around Norway, Iceland, and Greenland. A 13th century Icelandic tale, The King's Mirror, in 1250, mentions it as the Hofgufa. The first mention of the name Kraken seems to be from Eric Ponte-Padan's The Natural History of Norway, 1752 to 1753. The actual creature itself, Architeuthis, the giant squid, has only been recognized as an actual real animal for less than 200 years. Squid, octopus, and cuttlefish are cephalopods. Cephalopods have 8 arms with suction cups, and some of them have like claws or like teeth on the tentacles. A siphon, which is the like jet type thing that propels them through the water, and it also expels the ink for whenever they're trying to flee a predator or something. The mantle is like the tube that all the organs are in, and the mantle contains the pin, which is a thin, rigid support structure, and it also houses the organs, like I said. And then fins are attached to the mantle for steering. And they have a very large eyeball and a powerful beak for eating and defense. Cephalopods also have a decentralized brain, meaning it has multiple lobes spread out through the body, as to where we have, like, ours are just crammed into our skull. Theirs is, like I said, spread out through the body. Side lobes are located in the upper arms. This decentralized brain allows rapid fire nervous system reactions to environmental cues and stimuli. Side brains can make decisions without consulting the central brain. Side brains can even consult other side brains without the central brain knowing. And this is what allows for the rapid camouflage ability of octopus. And that is kind of my summary of what we know about the real creatures. And those are the real creatures that those and the giant Pacific octopus are the creatures that the Kraken, I believe, are based upon. And I believe Dave had something to say about the giant Pacific octopus as well.
Yeah, we're gonna touch on that in my story, and we'll probably get back to it at the end, because it does seem to be people may misunderstand that the giant squid is so much larger, but it has longer tentacles, but they're about the same size as far as the rest of it goes. So both of them are pretty large.
And the colossal squid is larger in mass, I believe, than both of them. It's thicker, but it's not as long as the giant squid.
And then they go into the colossals too, where some people believe they're the colossal varieties, and then they're that much more bulkier.
Yes.
And then these are the ones that haven't been found or anything.
Right. So, and it's hard to find them because they're made of such soft material. A lot of what you'll find is just beak or, a claw that was from a tentacle or something. And, the tales from the sailors of them being large enough to take down a boat. I mean, I could see them being large enough to take down a small boat. Because it seems like they were typically about 30 feet long, but the longest that I saw was reported to be 59 feet long. So, I mean, that's a pretty big animal.
That'd give you a pretty good fright if you were sailing on a 54-foot boat. Wait a minute. Hold the phone.
Yeah, if you were if you were out and some big old tentacles came wrapping up around the side, it might give you a start, huh? Do you know of anybody that's ever encountered any giant things, alive or dead, floating around? Maybe.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of there are whales. They're rather impressive when you're on a 30-foot boat and you got a 40-foot whale next to you. It's a fairly impressive sort of thing. They have very bad breath. They come up and breach. What you been eating there, buddy?
There you go. Whales have bad breath.
We know what they've been eating. They've been eating the fish and the krill and the this and the that, and then it smells like it, really.
Like the dumpster with the seafood buffet.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
What other wildlife do you run into besides the whales when you're out? Any
porpoises,
dolphins, seals,
cetaceans, they're big fish. Tuna. I got a great tuna fish story, but
Have you
catch
do
a
you,
tuna.
have you ever had anything aggressive when you're out in the water? Does anything ever thump into the
Like
boat
an
or anything?
orca trying to sink the boat? No,
Maybe.
no.
Nothing like that, huh? Okay. And see, that was something Trees and I were talking about, and he mentioned that it would take a lot of force to pull a ship underwater or to even to capsize a ship, because they kind of build them so that doesn't happen, you know?
Right.
Well, I mean, it depends on the vessel. I mean, you're not going to sink an orca is not going to sink a freighter, but it could conceivably disable it with a concerted attack on it. I mean, large large vessels have rudders. You know, the
Yeah.
rudders aren't huge; they're, they're big enough, but
A lot of the older stories, they would probably be on smaller vessels.
oh,
And
sure.
so there
I
would be
mean,
a lot more terrifying if you weren't on a large ship and on a smaller
yeah, I
earlier
mean,
one.
the Mayflower wasn't a particularly big boat. It
Mhm.
was beamy and full keel and all that stuff, but overall length not really huge. I mean,
It seems to me like if it was a big octopus or a big squid and they got at least half of their tentacles on one side of the boat and pulled down on one side of the boat and got all the weight shifted over to that one side, that would be the way to capsize.
yeah, but that's not. It's really not going to happen. It takes a lot to particularly with a big vessel with a full keel. Takes an awful lot to tip it over, and that's basically how boats work.
Yeah.
You know, you've got a keel, you've got something to stop the boat from going sideways, and to keep it upright. And in the age of sail, you put sails up, it's got to be stable, or the boat is going to, as it is, boats tip underway. They're meant to. They're meant to tip.
Yeah, I'm amazed. I'm amazed
You
at
make
how
you make
far the
waterline
sailboats get. Yeah.
by having the boat heeled over. So what you have is on the underwater surfaces, you've got something. But um, you've got the center of effort in the sail plan and a center of lateral resistance under the water. So what's working there is it's called the ancient interface. You've got the wind providing force. It's basically trying to drive the boat downwind. And you've got the underwater surfaces, the keel, something in there that is stopping the boat from going sideways to the point where it just turns and goes downwind.
Mm.
If you don't have anything under the water and the wind is blowing, it's going to go with the wind. You can't go anywhere
Yeah, so
unless you want to go downwind.
you would have to get like into the image up here on the screen, where it would just have to be such a massive amount of
Yeah, you'd have to have
mass.
something like that critter
Yeah.
right there. And,
that could
I
actually
suppose that
do
could
it.
do it because that thing looks like it could pick it up and stick it in its mouth.
Well, to me, the strategy then would be for the animal to try to just get in the boat, not necessarily capsize it, but just to try to get in there to eat the occupants.
Yeah, something like that. Nom 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 nom.
Yeah,
nom.
what is the motive? Is the motive to attack the ship, or does it just see it as a nook and cranny that might have a meal in there somewhere? Just
Oh, nice candy wrapper. Let's see what's inside.
a floating buffet. Well, as far as sinking ship sinking, I should say, happens tragically, and a lot of times I think they just were very superstitious and it got blamed on something.
Yeah.
And if you would seen any of these giant Pacific octopus or a giant squid, you would be suspect that maybe that's the baby, and mom and dad are around somewhere, without any knowledge of that being a full-grown specimen.
Right. Yeah, and I mean it would be scary to see if you're one of the first people to see these creatures. And then, like any story over time, I would imagine the size is going to grow and the circumstances are going to become more dire and more terrifying. And then, it becomes a fun story to tell when you and your buddies are getting drunk or, whatever. So,
and there are many stories that come from sailors about many things in their trips around the world, and many of them are embellished a little bit or a lot. So take it for what it is. But again, some of these things are based in, just bad things happening like shipwrecks. And so there can be a reason people tell the stories, and maybe warning that in a certain area, don't go there because, it could be the tide or a hidden reef or whatever it is. They blame it on a beastie, but if you avoided that area, maybe you were better for it.
Or they could maybe even hit the reef and scare out something that was lurking below the reef. Hit the reef, damage their ship, and then scare out a giant Pacific octopus that was hiding down there, and then think, oh, that thing did it. That thing bit the bottom of the boat, or, did something like that.
Yeah, they do like to hide in all the crevices and everything. So it's possible you could stir up a bunch of octopuses if you hit something like that.
Well, a lot of the collisions that happen nowadays offshore between smaller craft like a sailboat or something, somebody crossing an ocean in a 50, 60-foot boat. Most of the time, if you hit something, it's a container in the open ocean. Some container that fell off a container ship, you hit a container. That'll wreck it. That'll ruin your day. Usually what happens is you hit it, and usually it's one of the underwater surfaces. If it's a multi-hull, I know a friend of mine hit a container with a multi-hull. It was short-handed sailing, just, sailing single-handed. And, so yes, you're keeping a watch, but it's night and you're not seeing it. And you put on the autopilot and try to catch a couple of hours of shut-eye, and boom.
Scooby-Doo is right once again. The monsters are ourselves, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
We're putting the stuff out there to run into. That's just brilliant thinking. I have heard of stories where the different containers wash up on beaches, and it's amazing how they can float. So, all right, I think we covered that well, and let's go on to the next story. Our next sea monster is the Lusca. And take heed to this tale, as the Lusca may indeed be a real threat to divers in the blue holes and underwater caves around Andros Island in the Bahamas. They've also been reported to be in and around the Caribbean, Florida, into the Gulf of Mexico, and along the shores of Mexico. The Lusca is a chimera. It's a mismatch of animal parts, describing as being half shark, but not just any shark. A massive great white shark with a huge elongated jaw and rows of razor-sharp teeth. The Lusca has eyes that can see through the blackest of waters. It travels at jet ski speeds, with the tail end having a massive web of tentacles akin to an octopus. And like the octopus, the Lusca can travel through and get into small spaces and shallow waters. So you're not safe anywhere. And if that isn't enough, also like an octopus, the Lusca can change its color and blend in with its surroundings. The Lusca is said to be between 23 meters or 75 feet long, up to as large as 76 meters or 250 feet in length. The Lusca is one of the lesser known cryptids, yet the mystery that surrounds the stories of divers being attacked and gone missing from some type of a fearsome predator that is lightning fast and has the thirst for blood make it one of the more terrifying beastie tales of the sea. The Lusca has many
This thing's
tails.
got 2 mouths. What's going on?
Some of these Dave made up in AI, and I was having a lot of fun. And AI has a lot of fun with its creativity. So, but the descriptions vary, so AI is free to have a little creative license there. So, and it can be explained here coming up. The Lusca has many tales about its origins. Some say it's an unknown sea creature, a relative of a megalodon or the Kraken. Other stories say it's a lost dragon from the Orient, or a mermaid that has a grudge against sailors. Some stories are more ghost related, from a drowned woman taking revenge to the vengeful evil spirits of multiple drowned people conjoined together. Or it may be a demon, a satanic beast feeding on souls, creeping into many people's worst fears of what can be worse than being killed by a sea monster is the eternal suffering of a disembodied soul that follows death. Another place that Lusca like to frequent is Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. They seem to love going to all-inclusive hotspots and frequent the area's many underground cenotes. Cenotes are inland sinkholes. They were a hotspot for practices and rituals of the Aztec Empire. In most cases, cenotes were used as sacrificial altars by priests sacrificing humans, the peasants, the criminals, the prisoners to the gods in horrific and very bloody ways. The reports of a Lusca monster attacking swimmers and divers was investigated by Jeremy Wade, the host of the television series River Monsters, in the episode Terror in Paradise. Many of the people Jeremy interviewed said they were attacked by a giant Pacific octopus, and it's a leading suspect as to what may be attacking people and divers in certain areas. And some believe that there may be one or more gigantic species of or related to the giant Pacific octopus living in the depths of the oceans yet to be discovered. Claims of an unknown species of a giant Pacific octopus estimate them to be between 62 to 91 meters across, or 200 to 300 feet. That would tip the scales at up to 10 times as large and in weight as the largest on record for a giant octopus, currently being 272 kilograms or about 600 pounds, with a 9-meter or 30-foot arm span. That's a big octopus, and that's a real verified size octopus. While most octopuses are not a threat to humans and either avoid divers or just ignore them, the blue-ringed octopuses aside, leave those pretty little octopuses alone. Their venom can kill you. Are the reports of divers saying they ran into aggressive large octopuses that attacked them, wrapped around their heads, pulled at their mask and scuba gear, and took away cameras with their powerful muscular bodies. And they could see how quickly someone could be disoriented, blinded, panic, and could drown as their air supply is ripped from their mouths or damaged, especially in a closed, dark environment like underwater caves, where there would be little chance of escaping and surfacing. And yes, an octopus can eat you. They have a powerful beak that is the only hard part of their body, and octopuses will eat almost anything they can get a hold of and subdue it. And that could be you. One of the large aquariums was losing sharks in their large ocean tank. Got the picture up here. So they stayed up one night and staked out the tank to indeed find the culprit. And it was an octopus attacking and half devouring in one evening sharks in the tank. Does the Lusca exist? Is there a giant, bloodthirsty, half shark, half octopus with a serious attitude against people roaming the seas? Or is it more in the realm of a giant Pacific octopus just looking to grab a meal within range or in self-defense of its home? While there may or may not be enormous giant octopus or half shark, half octopus beasties, there are real and present dangers in the sea to be wary of and to respect their place in the seas, and best to avoid them in those areas where they may be, or you may end up as another mystery disappearance and on the menu of the Lusca. I guess we can stay right there. So pretty bad as sea monster, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, either one of those alone, like a giant Pacific octopus or a big shark, either one of them by themselves would be scary enough, let alone one of them or, a combination of the two.
And it's fast, it's bloodthirsty, it's evil, it doesn't care, and it can get, like they said, into small spaces and even shallow waters because it can change its camouflage and its size just like an octopus can. And
Right.
For those that don't know, the only hard part of an octopus is its beak. So it is limited only by the size of its beak. If it can get its beak through the hole, it can get the rest of its body through.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Like you mentioned caves. Like octopuses live in caves. I ain't going in any cave down there. So no, thank you. No. It's like you might want to be in an octopus's garden in the shade, not me. No, no.
That's part of it.
Keep the cave. Nice octopus. You stay in the cave. I'll stay outside. Wave hi.
You talked about the cenotes. There are videos of cave divers like going in the cenotes that you're talking about. I don't know about like octopus or anything, but the main threat for them is to get stuck back in there or get going forward and then need to go backwards, and then your tanks get caught up, or there's crazy horror stories of people diving and then their partner getting stuck behind them and them having to, wait on them to run out of oxygen and pass away, and then push their body out of the way and then swim to get out. Like, there's crazy cave diving stories about those cenotes.
So you're already in a
Yes.
very dangerous environment. So yeah, one giant octopus all entangled up, and that can cause you serious problems real quick.
Yeah, if you were to a spot where you couldn't turn
you're
around.
in one of those caves and you turn around and it's like all of a sudden there's this big octopus like saying, "Hey, bud."
And they do. Looking around, there are plenty of videos where they sticking cameras on a pole into these holes, and it's hard to see how big they are, but it appeared that some of them were decent size. And yeah, so are they attacking people as food, or is it self-defense? Somebody just swam right into your house.
It may be the case that they might just see your hand or maybe just your arm and think, "Oh, I can take that thing. I'm big enough that I can grab that arm." And they don't know that arm's attached to a torso. They just see the arm and think, I can take that thing. So they go and grab it, and then there you are with a beak and 8 arms grabbing a hold of your arm.
And they're not shaking your hand either.
They're
not there to say how do you do.
Right. And you're in a confined space where you may or may not be able to turn around with your gear on, and now you're screwed.
I watched the River Monsters episode. I didn't want to show any clips because that's Discovery Channel or whatever, but you can go and watch it. And he spoke to divers, and I think it was the first diver he spoke to. He goes out every day, and he goes out fishing. He's out getting sea cucumbers and all kind of stuff. And when he first saw the octopus, he was saying, $5 a pound, right? So he said, he was the aggressor, and then it wrapped itself. Yeah, he said it was wrapped around his head, pulling on his mask and his air supply and everything in an instant. So again,
here's the thing,
was it self-defense?
Yeah, the octopus realm has definitely got stand your ground legislation right in place there. It's like, oh, you think you're no.
It's not the castle doctrine. They got the coral doctrine.
That's right. And they're well armed. Like,
yes,
8 of them.
Highly armed.
6 and more than you.
And each arm has a brain lobe, like attached, like to the upper arm portion of them.
Each arm is thinking for itself.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to consult the main brain in the center. So,
and again, you're talking about 30 feet across. That's pretty big.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's almost all muscle.
Yeah.
They're almost all completely muscle, and like I say, they don't have bones. Their only hard part is like a beak. It's like a parrot's beak, and it's really strong, and it's proportional to the size how strong it is. So the bigger the octopus, the bigger the beak, the more power it's going to have because of the hinged operate. It's one of the ones that goes inside of each other like that.
Yeah.
So when it's going in, that joint is really powerful for. That's like a nutcracker, right? That's how a nutcracker works. So they can crack open crab, and they like crab
and sea turtles. Yeah. They also I've seen like fishing footage of people pulling them up on the boat and like trying to take it off their hook or whatever, and it looks like a wet plastic bag or something. Like it just covers them, and not just the tentacles. It's like the whole friggin' thing just lays on you and wraps itself around you, and you're stuck with this thing on you that, and then like the skin cells can like do like problem solve it. Like it's insane when you really get into how those things operate. Like, and they're very tactical. Like you were saying, that's probably the first time that thing ever saw a diver, and it assessed the situation and thought that thing that's bubbling right there, that's where the air is going to this thing. It assessed the situation. That's its air supply. I'm going to pull that out and see what happens. And then the diver starts struggling. It's okay. Yeah, that's it. You know, like I need to get an arm around here and pull on this thing. Like
one of the other stories was one of them stole his underwater camera, and they usually have both hands on them. You know, they have that big apparatus around it, and he was doing filming, and it just appeared, wrapped around, and it was so powerful it took his camera and it was gone. Goodbye, camera.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with something that's all muscle
and strategic. Like they're very methodical as to what they're doing. They're doing it for a reason.
And if you haven't seen it before, they can open jars. If you put food inside of a jar with a screw-on lid, it can unscrew the lid and get inside the jar. They are problem solvers, and if you're food, they're going to problem solve it.
Yeah, and just the ambush, like their camouflage ability. If you've never seen that, go look in the search bar for octopus camouflage, and there's plenty of YouTube videos of
this image here. Yeah, when it was first sitting there, you couldn't even recognize it. The sharks are just swimming around, one of those giant aquariums, and they're doing their thing because most sharks have to keep swimming to breathe. So they're doing their patrolling around the giant aquarium, big, beautiful aquarium. And as one came along, this looks like a rock. You don't even notice it until its arms just reached right up and snagged it.
Yeah,
that fast. And so
they don't just camouflage color; they camouflage texture. So it will be multiple. Like as far as that background goes, it will blend in perfectly to that background, and then all of a sudden appear like the Predator from the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, like just out of nowhere, and it'll have it.
They have such amazing muscle control that they can actually ripple their surface and everything. And you don't see it. But the thing is, this shark was like a couple feet long. So, and this isn't a huge octopus. So when you start scaling it up to the largest ones, and then if you can go beyond that as well, they can start eating a decent sized shark, 4 to 5, 6 feet long, and that's as big as you are.
Right. And a 6 foot long shark is probably, I'm not sure about this, but probably stronger than you are. As far as
especially in the water.
Like wild animals possess a different kind of strength than what a human does, but
so like we were saying, and we all agree, and Stephanie said too, and I think we're unanimous on it. You go poking into a cave or something in these areas with these large octopuses, you're probably going to find one. And are they actually attacking people? It seems to me most of the instances, it may be more of a self-defense because they were either poking into their holes or swimming into their caves and disturbing them, or it was somebody like these fishermen that are actively looking around, poking everything around, see what comes out, and they can put in their little ditty bag.
And you don't poke into other things' holes without consent.
That's right. Bad. Very bad. Bad of me. Very bad.
Bad dog.
So I am on the fence as to whether they are actually aggressive or not. They can be. But then again, like Trees and I have talked about bears and stuff before. bears usually don't mess with people either. But if you mess with their youngins, mama gonna show up.
I think it's probably a proximity thing. You know, if you get into something's personal space up to a certain point, you're okay. But you cross that threshold, you've pushed it too far. So,
and I'm not sure how territorial an octopus is, but many species are. Their areas are their source for hunting and stuff. And unless, some species do, have long ranges, but for those that don't, that chunk of real estate is very important to their survival. And
yep.
They will fight you to the death for it because it is a matter of their survival.
An octopus, even if they leave, I've seen that they will take a piece of cover with them sometimes. If they leave their area, they'll take a chunk of coral or some kind of sea trash, a can or a jar or something that they can get inside and hide, and they'll make journeys carrying that piece of gear with them, and then they'll climb inside it and use it as a shelter. And they're very intelligent animals.
And like many of the other species, you got to respect their place in nature. And like with sharks and other things, there's certain times a day you shouldn't be out in the shallow waters waiting around because you might get bit or stung. And heed the warnings, pay attention. And if you got to wait a couple hours to go dip your toes in the water, then wait a couple hours and you'll be better off, because a lot of these instances seem to be that they could have been avoided.
Right. And
right.
Like the blue ring octopus, anytime there's something brightly colored in nature, usually leave it alone, because usually things are camouflaged to fit in their surroundings so predators don't get them. If there's something that looks like a highlighter marker, bright neon colors, usually it's got venom or something that's going to hurt you.
Fair warning. Yeah, I've seen videos of people picking these things up, and the comment sections are just lit up with people saying, you shouldn't be doing that. Now, it is rare. I could only find maybe a couple of deaths related to these blue ring octopus, but their venom is very potent. So, as Trees said, if it's brightly colored, leave it be, whether it be a snake or something in the water, a toad, a frog, so many of these things, they're warning you. So, it looks so pretty. Yes. That means don't touch it. It means just look at how pretty I am. Don't touch me.
You got a phone with a camera, take a picture of it and be happy with your picture of it.
And as to these especially these cave divers, I think that if that wasn't just an accident like Trees was speaking of, it quite possibly could have been an octopus aiding in the accident and them getting tangled up in a tight place, and they never find them again. So
if it can happen to Steve Irwin, it can happen to you.
That's right. That's words of wisdom there.
I think cave diving may be one of the most dangerous activities you can do. So do not take it lightly. And if you don't know what you're doing, don't even try to do it. All right. All right, Trees. Our final story is going to be on the Leviathan, another awesomely classic sea monster. And a lot of people also know it from the Bible as well. So, Trees. Biblical. The Leviathan, what you got for us?
All right, let's talk about a multi-headed, heavily armored, hell-mouthed dragon fish demon from the Bible known as Leviathan. There is a rich mythical history of gods battling chaos serpents. There's Zeus versus Typhon in Greek, Ra versus Ophep from Egyptian lore, Indra versus Vritria in India, Thor versus Jormungandr of Norse mythology. So it seems as though this is a common tool of particular religions or beliefs in demonstrating a particular god's powers or skills, because usually they will talk up the beast and then the god will defeat it and maybe make a creation myth from the defeat, or different types of myths spring out of these god versus sea serpent battles. For instance, Marduk kills Tiamat in the Babylonian myth, and Tiamat's body was split in two. Half of it created the heavens, and the other half created the earth. And then Marduk wanted to create mankind using his own blood magic. And Enki, another god, and the other gods decided that a god should be sacrificed instead. So they chose Kingu, who was sacrificed, and their blood was used instead to create mankind. And then the Canaanites had the myth of Baal, or Baal, however you pronounce it, Baal, and it included Yam's pet Lotan, sent to defeat Baal. And it seems that this idea probably originated with a prehistoric religion of Proto-Indo-Europeans, and the myth was a popular story and spread to other cultures, including the ancient Israelites, and was then incorporated into the original biblical canon. So Leviathan is basically a remnant of older myths. The entire chapter 41 of Job talks about how powerful Leviathan is, describing the physiology of the beast, how its scales are layered, and how you can't air can't pass between them, and they're stacked like shields. And basically, it's talks about how powerful Leviathan is, describes how what was it, spears and certain things can't penetrate its armor, and then he basically threatens Job with Leviathan, saying that Yahweh can treat Leviathan as a pet, as, basically like a puppy or something, and basically threatening Job with, bodily harm using Leviathan.
Poor Job.
Job goes through it. Let's see here. Yeah. And then in Psalms 73, 13 and 14, it says, "Thou did divide the sea by thy strength. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces, and gavest him to be meat to the people of the wilderness." It's further mentioned in the books of Psalms 104, 24 to 40, or 24 to 26, Isaiah 27, 1. So it seems to me that Leviathan is more of a literary tool to show Yahweh's power, just like the other stories of the gods defeating the chaos serpents, and something arising from the defeat, like I just said, like he said, he fed the people of the wilderness with the body. So it seems to feed into that type of mythology. And then young Earth creationists even use it to cite it as evidence that man coexisted with dinosaurs. So you run the gamut of what people want to use it for as a literary tool, but that's what it seems to me. So, what are your thoughts?
I like
on
the
that
take,
matter?
the sushi take. I think that's really good. It's like, yeah, well, what do you got here? It's like, yeah, have some Leviathan sushi here. You know, like,
Yeah, it's human.
hey, we don't have any rice, but use the lentils. It's very, very good. You'll enjoy that. And it's very, very good.
It's kosher.
How
It's
can
kosher.
anybody take the damn Bible seriously? I mean, my God.
I was hoping you'd like this one.
Leviathan sushi. Look at that.
Well, it's got a nice ring to it. You would have kelp, and then you'd have the Leviathan lentil sashimi that would be wrapped in the kelp. That sounds nice.
Pretty awesome.
Sea salt.
Well, there's
Actually,
different schools of thought on Leviathan. Some say it was some kind of a snake, and others say it's a crocodile. But as far as unless you go to the supernatural, most of the Bible scholars that stay away from the supernatural say that no, would have to have been an animal that people lived around and feared. And the list of fearful animals that fit these categories are usually the hippo, the crocodile, and some of your larger snakes and or poisonous snakes. And many people know we already have a fear of snakes that seems to be ingrained in us. You see a snake and it's like, eeh. And like around here, we have non-poisonous snakes, but if there's one going through the garden, it makes me jump. So,
well, in the biblical, or in the book of Enoch, which was biblical at one point, but they said that it's like basically 300 miles long. Like it said that whenever God slays Leviathan and Behemoth, and he will feed it to the city dwellers deemed righteous, and its skin will be flayed and cover as a tent, like over the city of Jerusalem, basically. And
that's big.
Kind of, yeah, it describes like the color of Leviathan's skin and different shit like that. But
yeah, that is supernatural in size, because there is always a matter of physics coming into play whenever we're talking about any of these large beasties, Bigfoot's included. You can only get so big and so tall before you have to change the entire structure to accommodate all that weight. So,
well, I just read further in my notes. It said basically that the skin, after it was like stretched around Jerusalem, would have been so bright that that's what illuminates the world. Like,
that's big.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the real dangers go, again, crocodiles are a danger, snakes are a danger, and some also say it could be something like a giant squid or something washed up on a beach, and that's where they get their stories from. So
I've heard that it could be even a metaphor for the ocean itself. I've heard that Leviathan could have been just kind of poetic language for the waves, and how big and powerful that the ocean itself is.
A hurricane.
Yeah, or just huge rogue waves or anything in a small primitive vessel back in biblical days could have been devastating.
And if you're in Florida or something, it might be something you're used to, but every once in a while these hurricanes kind of bounce around and they end up in oddball places. So if it was a lot more rare, it might freak you out a lot more. I'm sure Stephanie doesn't like going out in rough weather. That's not ideal conditions, is it?
Well, sometimes you're out in rough weather, whether you want it or not. It's rather circumstantial. But you can, if you're doing day sailing or something like that, doing a little race, it's a little inshore race. You don't have to go out if it's thunder and lightning. You don't have to do that. It's like, hey, no problem. However, if you're on a 600-mile race, you don't know what's going to happen, and you're just. That's one of the nice things about sailing is you need to just sort of take it as it comes.
Right. You got to ride
Be
the waves.
adaptable.
Yeah.
It's a rather stupid thing to do because you're out of control the entire time. It's like, but that's surrender, you got to let go. You undertook to do this, and you've got to be, you just got to sort of, well, this is happening now.
Yeah,
we'll have to deal with this.
Something
else will happen in another.
my uncle had a boat up on the lake, and we would go fishing a lot in the summer. And it would start getting choppy out, and he would, well, let's head in. And he's diehard, but yeah, it's getting a little choppy. Let's head in. Plus, when the weather stirs up, the fish stop biting and everything, anyways, right? So we're heading in, and he had a fishing boat. It had the deep sides on it, so you could lean over and get your fish without falling in, right? It was a boat for fishing. And we're going in, and you've got a boatload of guys going out in these little tri-hulls barely above the water's surface. And you shake your head. It's like, why? I don't know. Some people know better, and I think we're speaking to it again. These things can be avoided. Don't go out in that little boat when it's choppy out.
Yeah, I've got a kayak. Like, that's my only boating experience is just a 10-foot long kayak, and I got almost swept out into the Ohio River once. I got caught in some fast-moving water in a large creek that was leading to the Ohio River, and I had to beach it basically on a sandbar, and then plan out how I was going to get across. I ended up getting across and beaching it again on another sandbar that was against the side that I needed to go to. And then me and my dog climbed out, and I drug the kayak up the hill and called my brother with my phone and got a ride out. But I started moving fast, I was like, no, I got to get the fuck out of here. And
one of those rip tides or rip currents, or where those could be pretty terrifying to early people too, sailing around in, again, smaller vessels.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's something, your sense of mortality certainly arises when catastrophic things happen at sea. It's like,
and then, as Trees is mentioning, there's a lot of mention in the Bible, and like I was saying about the Lusca, if you are religious and you think this is some kind of a satanic beastie that's out to get your soul, you might exaggerate the story a little bit more when you tell it to your kids, right? Because
and leave a comment if you think that.
That's like I said, what's worse than getting eaten by a sea monster? Getting eaten by a sea monster for all of eternity, right?
Yes.
So if you have that serious fear, I mean, it's more powerful to you, You can say, well,
on the other hand, if you're in good with Yahweh, there, he'll be cutting up the sushi for you for all of eternity.
But some of the myths said that Leviathan had hell in its mouth. That was the gates of hell, was Leviathan's mouth. So if you take that literally, then hell exists in the belly of Leviathan and not underground or whatever it's thought of.
Yeah, because there's mention of some kind of spark or fire or something coming out of its mouth.
Out of his nostrils. Smoke comes out of his nostrils, which that could have been like a whale breaching in the distance they might have seen or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Or a volcano on an island, or who knows,
And I said something about some folks think that the Lusca might be a mermaid, and as we know with mermaid stories, people that have been out to sea for a long time tend to see mermaids in a lot of different animals, and I think the imagination is on high alert when you've been out to sea for a long time.
It sure is.
And maybe, the eyes are, also tired. A lot of these back in the day, it was hard work, very dirty, hard work, long hours when they were sailing around the oceans. And of course, the water, the atmosphere, everything plays tricks on your eyes. And as Stephanie pointed out, a whale comes swimming up alongside your boat. And hey, right? It's going to catch your attention, especially if you're not 100%. And it's going to exaggerate. It's going to look different to you, depending on the lighting conditions, the weather, and everything else.
And if that large of an animal is coming up to get air, like it needs to breathe, so it's moving in an urgent manner. It doesn't know you're up there. He's coming up for a breath, whether you're there or not.
One thing to keep in mind, though, is that most of the ancient people, most of the people in the Near East, anyway, and most of the people in the Mediterranean, are not. They're not engaging in long voyages out of sight of land a good deal. I mean, they're mostly going coastwise, following a coastline. So most of the stuff that they're seeing is not the stuff you see out in the middle of the ocean. They're seeing the stuff that's inshore or onshore, even if they are navigating, if they are on the deep and briny.
And that would also lend to not seeing these things very often. Yeah. So if one did show up that was maybe lost or sick or something, it would be more of an oddity.
Probably good. Yeah.
Yeah, a beach sperm whale or something would probably blow their minds back then. Or just a piece of one, to where their imagination could spin it to be something. Or if a shark was cut in half by a killer whale or something and its entrails were coming out, that could perhaps look like a Lusca.
Sure.
It could have a shark head and have the intestines coming out.
Washed up and all half chewed up. Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely would. Yeah. Good point. And say, as far as any type of sea serpent goes, mythology and real stories are loaded with stories about snakes, because a lot of snakes are dangerous. So there is a real fear, and there are snakes out in the water as well as eels, and they could obviously, it's a long, slender swimming thing. It's a snake, right?
Right.
But
or a dragon. Could be a dragon.
And then, as I pointed out earlier, if you don't know any better, you don't know if that's an adult or a juvenile. So you may see an adult of a species and be telling your shipmates or your children, that's just the baby, right?
Yeah.
Mama, you got to watch out for mama. And I do understand why some of these stories were told, because again, maybe they're just trying to get it through somebody's head to avoid certain areas, don't sail in certain areas, don't fish in certain areas, just not worth it. So the story grows and grows, and it grows until it encircles the whole city, right, Trees?
Right.
Because if it's that big, it's that much more scarier, that much more powerful, and surely has to be from Satan himself.
Yes, and the only thing that can defeat it is the god of your particular religion.
Yeah, it's from Crete to Alexandria is 343 nautical miles. So yeah, it's not a whole. That's not really far.
So of course, when they started going across the oceans, they would run into these whales and other large things. So the stories would start trickling back, and the first stories, until it was more widely seen and known about, the first stories would have came back very fantastic too. The first time you're out there and saw one of these blue whales or the other large species, it had to be mind-blowing. I mean, that's a big fish. And again, you don't know if that's the mama or the baby fish, right?
Right.
So now we know when we can assess with these animals if they are a juvenile or an adult species, and they pretty much know what size these different things get to. But back then they didn't know any better. And yeah, if it was that big, why not bigger, right? Why not 10 times bigger? Why not 100 times bigger?
Right.
If you see a baby something and then the size it got to as an adult, why not? And I will say, if you like playing around with the AI, AI does seem to like making very cool sea monsters. So I punched in sea monsters, Kraken, Leviathan, and the Lusca, and they came up with some really cool pictures. So
yeah, nifty stuff.
So what I wanted to wrap up things with is talking about what size these beasties really are. Now, I'm not talking about the great white, but great white sharks. I think the biggest ones are about 15 feet, something like that. It's a big fish, and it's all eating machine. And granted, there are great whites. But as far as all the squid and octopus and octopuses and species of them that we were talking about, here's kind of a little graph. One of the things, and what I wanted to point out is the giant squid and then the claims of the colossal squid are mainly in the size of its body. They aren't really saying that it's all that much that the tentacles are so much bigger or that it would be able to engulf a ship or anything like you see in the movies or anything. Their claims, and these are just claims, is that the body is actually a lot bigger. And the same thing if you look at the giant Pacific octopus. It's pretty big. Like I said, 30 feet across. And if you kind of look, this is a man, and these are pretty close here. The Humboldts, which one's the Humboldts? The one down here?
4 down.
Yeah, the Humboldts, they're about 4 or 5 feet long. So if you're about 5 foot tall, that's so yeah, that's pretty big compared to a person. And one of these giant species, and if it goes beyond, it could engulf pretty much all of you with its tentacles and suction cups. And
you don't weigh as much as you do on land in saltwater. So they could have their way with you a lot easier when you're suspended in fluid. You know what I mean?
And if you don't have any scuba gear, if you're just out swimming or something, you've got, limited time on your air supply. So you've got a matter of, less than a minute, let's say, to get free and back to the surface, or you're in a bad way real quick. There's no second breath to take.
Right.
You're probably not going to see any of these giganto things in shallow water, really.
No, they usually are like 3,000 foot deep plus.
Well, what they do is the ones that were out finding them, they do come up to hunt, so they stay down, and but then some of them are up hunting, depending on the species. And I think Trees and I were talking about the Humboldts come out; they're just everywhere. They're not hiding. They're out in force. They're hunting in packs like a giant wolf pack or something.
Like up to 1,000 of them at a time will go on just hunting expeditions, I guess, by the thousands. And they're powerful. They're about as big as a human, and they weigh about 80 or 90 pounds, I believe, and are just all muscles and arms and beak.
And I've seen plenty of shows about it before. If you haven't seen them, they're easy to find. There's plenty of shows on the Humboldts, and they have an attitude.
Yeah, very, very aggressive.
Very aggressive, and like Trees and I were talking about before the show, they don't live very long. They've got to grow. They've got to eat to grow, obviously, and then they've got to find a mate and take care of business because they ain't got long. So this is an animal that doesn't have time to waste with you. Okay, if you are in its way, it's got no time for you. All right. It's got to eat and reproduce, and it's got to do it quick. Okay.
Yes. If it can't reproduce with you, it's going to eat you.
They seriously have an attitude. So it is possible these cephalopods can have an attitude. It would also then lend that maybe the giant squid would have an attitude and a giant Pacific octopus. The question is, have we found the biggest specimens of them or not? Even if we have, you're talking, like I say, both the giant Pacific octopus and the giant squid can pretty much wrap their tentacles around you. So if you were to, cut this out and actually move it over here, I should have made a graphic. I didn't think about it. But if you cut this out, you're going to put that right over, and that person's pretty much going to disappear. So it's not a published threat or anything. And again, attacks are rare, and not all of them are confirmed. But just going by the size and the power, and if they're any bigger species or just of the same species, a little bit bigger, it's easy to see that they can make it a bad way for you, especially if you are in one of these caves or blue holes or other tight spot areas where things can go bad real quick without one of these things all wrapped around you. Having one wrapped all around you is definitely going to be a bad thing.
Sounds like it might ruin your day.
Yeah. And again, you think the giant squid is so much larger, but really, what the thing that's large is the few. What do they call these?
I forget what there's two long ones.
Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue.
The tentacles.
Brian, I see you in the chat. What are the two long ones called? But yeah, that's your only major difference, right? If you line them up,
that they drag those behind, kind of like fishing lines or something, in case something bumps into it, they can snatch it up real quick, or drag it across the bottom as they swim. If they're, I don't know exactly what they're using those for.
I think I recently saw a diver engaging in play with an octopus, not a giant octopus, but just your regular run-of-the-mill octopus. And the octopus was kind of digging it, and the diver was kind of, just But again, these are wild creatures. Don't mess,
You'd have to be
I mean,
very careful because at some point, if they think your fingers is wiggling around like a food item, they might chop it off.
Mark in the chat said the Humboldt has been shown to be curious about humans when not hungry. Yeah, I think Trees brought that up. I think they are curious about mating with us, possibly, right? It seems they've got two things.
They've got a lot of tentacles. Maybe it could be fun, but no.
Brian,
and again, how do you know when they're not hungry?
That's the question.
So it's like, are you hungry, mate?
Brian says feeding tentacles. So thank you, Brian. And speaking of, hello, Brian and Mark and Big Bad Mama,
Big Bad Mama,
and Pragmatic Crystal,
good in the sack,
and the ape, the trusty ape.
The gang's all here. What's up, Kevin?
And Sanhami.
Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
However, I'm messing it up. I'm sorry. Nara.
What's up, Nara?
Simos.
I haven't seen him for a while, or them for a while.
Simos had a stream up earlier talking about the Japanese Grand Prix. They are Grand Prix fans. So, and Mark, good to see you from the other side of the planet. Hope things are good over there. So yeah, the question. So then Mark brings up the question. Then how curious are they about us? Are they just in a mating frenzy, or are they a feeding frenzy, or are they just curious, checking us over? Kind of how you look at it, huh?
It seems like they have a complex enough brain system to have curiosity, to see, hey, I mean, they're underwater all the time. They see this thing jump down in here with goggles and bubbles coming out and regulators clicking and air hissing and, different noises coming from you. Like, you're a new thing to them. So, yeah, they're going to swim right up to you and grab stuff and pull it and see what does what, maybe. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, we were talking too. Doesn't seem to be a lot of attacks by giant squids as compared to attacks that people seem to be having by the giant octopuses. So
I think, like Steph said, that they're at such a depth that humans are probably not going to encounter the giant squid or colossal squid as frequent as what they would a giant Pacific octopus.
And that's one of the points they bring up, that some of the ones that they do get a hold of are ones that are juveniles, and they aren't actually as deep as Mama is. So once again, how big is Mama, right?
Yeah.
And it's possible that there's a lot of species that get into a niche. Certain species of the catfish, they can grow enormous if they get in the right little nook somewhere with a great food supply. Yeah. So it is surely possible that you could have a monster size of one of these, another species, and they could be way down deep in the oceans. But then they aren't messing with us. So when you are going to use it is possible that deeper and deeper you go, you're kind of also taking away from, then there's no reason for them to be up on top with us. So before we close out, I want to thank everybody for stopping by, and I want to thank Stephanie for joining us. And Trees, it's good to see you.
Yep. Thanks for joining us, Stephanie. It's been fun.
Anybody have any closing comments on the beasties we talked about tonight? Are you gonna be able to sleep okay?
Yeah.
And Stephanie, you don't fear any of the sea monsters when you go out?
Just another thing to worry about, I guess. But
She's
deal with it when it happens.
The shipping containers are what you got to watch out for, right?
Shipping containers, yeah, because you don't see those. They're under there, and they're hard. They will break a boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Trees, any sea monsters in your area? See, up here we do have the Bessie in Lake Erie. So is there any down in your area there? I don't remember.
I thought a sea consisted of salt water, so I don't know. But no, we don't have. I mean, somebody may have made up something by now, but I don't think so. Most of our lakes around here are man-made, even the larger ones.
I was watching Maya's stream the other night, and it was about sea monsters too. And I was like, oh boy, I got to check out and see what they're talking about, right? And yeah, I did comment a couple of times. These are almost all lake monsters. So I did kind of point out, isn't there a difference,
Casco Bay has Cassie, and Chesapeake Bay has Chessie, but they're all, all variations on a theme.
Mm-hmm.
Champ from
as far
Lake
as cryptids are concerned.
They all take a plesiosaur model, basically. A hump in the water with a long neck, which can be most anything. It's also one of those observations that a lot of things look like a hump with a long neck in the water.
A log.
The driftwood. They had a driftwood picture that showed up in numerous monster stories, and it was like that piece of driftwood really gets around. It's used for different monster stories. So that's some supernatural driftwood, driftwood, going on there.
It just got into the stream or the ocean current streams, and it's made its rounds. It's got stamps on it like an old cartoon suitcase in a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
So who do you think wins? The Kraken, the Lusca, or the Leviathan? Who's going home? Cage match. Who goes home?
I think if the Kraken is an octopus, I think it wins.
Stephanie?
Because it's smart.
What do you think, Stephanie? The Kraken?
I'm going with that.
The Kraken?
Yep.
Well, I'm going with my Lusca because I thought that thing was one badass beastie. And when I came across, I told Trees, I think, what was it? It was like a day after the last show or something. It's like I got the Lusca already picked because half shark, half tentacles with and when they have the some of the images with all the big huge sharp teeth just projecting out of its mouth, and lightning fast and everything. It just seemed and basically shape shifting because of its octopus abilities. So if you got a shark that can get a great white sized shark that can get you in 2 feet of water, man, that's a serious beastie.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed reading about them. I read a lot of stories about the sea monsters. I know Trees was doing a lot of homework. He went down a few rabbit holes and learned a few things. And Stephanie learned us that a whale has bad breath. So if you see a whale, give it a mint. You just might make its day.
Well, Stephanie taught us a lot, really, about boats and balance points and hulls and all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to have to rewatch this for information alone.
And that's why we had her on, and we do appreciate her giving her expertise. And I will link Stephanie's channel in the description when we're done. If you don't know who Stephanie is, go check out her channel. She does talk about many things, as well as sailing and what she's been doing lately. And I've half a dozen times now, I think I watched her making up sails. And just before the show today, she said she just delivered the sails to the customer that they made them up for. So everybody's happy, and may the wind be in
So
their
far.
sails. And
They
may
fit. We know that they do fit. So that there's that. That's the one thing. Now I've got to go tune the boat and go sailing with the guy, but that's for another day.
And
you got anything new to plug that's coming up, Stephanie? Or
to be honest, I've been so wrapped up in getting this project finished. I haven't had much time to think about what's next, but there will be something next somewhere along the line.
Gotcha.
If you want to catch Stephanie, I'm sure if you typed it in there, you'll find her. She's been on numerous channels talking about numerous topics and social issues. And everybody always appreciates her input on those shows. So I'm sure if you want to hear more, and maybe she has some links, I'm sure she has probably some links on her channel to some of those ones that she did. So make sure you check it out. I will put her link in the description. I will put Trees in there too. Trees, what do you got going on over at your channel?
Coming up, I'm definitely going to have a knife review video coming up pretty soon on a knife. Well, I think I have it. This knife, let's see if I can get it. It's the same person that made the pry bar that I did a video on also has a knife line. So I have a couple of those that I'm going to do a review on and compare them to another popular knife of the same size and do some testing and stuff like that. So that's what I've got cooking up in the more near future.
I see Deconverted Man stop by too. Hello, good to see you. And for those who like really creepy things, and I mean really creepy, all right, the Captive Desk is going to have a summoning stream next Sunday, October 1st, to kick off the spooky Halloween season. I just about have a Hugh Ross video done. And while making the video on Hugh Ross put out a scientifically testable method for attracting UFOs. He says that if you get out the Ouija board and the tarot cards and the astrology, and if you're listening to the wrong music or reading the wrong books or watching the wrong TV shows or movies, or it's a long list that, Smurfs, whatever, right? Green M&Ms. Okay. Watch out, because those are all demons, but they're manifesting as UFOs and aliens. And that's why we have so many of these things going on in the news right now, because we're not being godly enough and the demons are having a heyday. So I have never seen a UFO. The things I have seen, I knew what they were. I've seen the space station go overhead. I've seen airplanes. We have an airport nearby. I've never seen anything that I said, I wonder what that is. But I'm eager to see one. So we're going to put his quote, scientifically testable. Okay. This is it. You play around with this stuff, and I've got them. We got tarot cards and everything unopened. So we're gonna play it official. Okay. I didn't monkey with these or anything. It's still in the plastic. All right. We're going to open this stuff up, and we're going to read the directions. And then later on, I hope to have some UFO and alien encounters to share with you in the following week or so. So we're looking forward to it. I know some other people have showed some interest. So I think Tobin is planning on joining with us. And I think Nara said he might join. And if anybody else wants to join, Big Bad Mama already made a request. What was it? Was it the incubus or the succubus? Maybe one of each. So we've already got some requests coming in, and if you do have a request for something you want summoned up, maybe help you find your car keys or something, we're happy to help. I've got I don't know where my book went. See, the demonic book disappeared. Aha, here we go. I've got a spell book, so we're gonna look up the spells.
Ooh,
and
nice.
This is
They're from India, right?
This is from India, because right now, and again, I'm listening to Hugh and the other people that are saying this. India is the hot spot for demons right now. So if you want to find a demon, India is the place to be. So this is a Hindu spell book. So we're going to do our best to reach all the way to India. Maybe Mark can join in with us, and he can be like a jumping off point there in Australia. Kind of
namaste, demons.
Kind of bounce it around a little bit and wake them demons up over in India and get them into the skies over Ohio so we can get a picture of a UFO. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. And we're going to have a lot of fun. It's, of course, Halloween coming up. And for a teaser, Trees and I were talking about, because, of course, our show will be around Halloween. Not sure what day, but so Trees, what you want to give them a little teaser there on what we were talking about, what we're going to do for next month's episode?
Where we were talking about going back towards the Bigfoot region, right?
We're talking about going to the classics.
Yeah. Oh, for Halloween.
That's after Halloween. Yeah, after Halloween, we got some great Bigfoot stories. We got some great Bigfoot stories coming up.
But we're going to do the classics like Frankenstein, the Mummy, vampires, werewolves, different ones like that.
Just because it's Halloween, so
zombies.
we're gonna hit on the classics, and then we're gonna dive back into the Bigfoots, because we've got some great Bigfoots. We've got a Hawaii Bigfoot. This is a great Bigfoot story. I can't wait to do the Hawaii Bigfoot. And we've got some intimate encounters with Bigfoots, so we're going to be covering those.
Some steamy encounter.
Some steamy encounters in the woods with the Bigfoots. And
it's totally not just lonely rednecks.
And some of them swear that what they got in that big belly is from a Bigfoot. So we've got some great ones coming up. Not to mention, Bigfoots are on every continent, in every state, in every locale, in every little nook. I've spotted him in my backyard, so you never know. So we've got a lot of great Bigfoot stories coming up. And don't worry, for those that want Grassman stories, we're going to have Grassman stories. But Trees and I get talking, and we're like, oh, let's do this. Oh, let's do that. So as we go, though, we'll be a little more methodical about it. But and speaking of, we're also working on moving the Grassman Chronicles to its own channel. So we'll be exclusively Grassman on the Grassman channel. So if you aren't subscribed over there, there's be a link in the description. Subscribe over there, because once we get it all set up, we have plans on doing the Grassman over there. And we've got more plans for some extra shows. So if you're a fan of this stuff, we're going to try and do some extra shows in between, some shorties, and give you some more Grassman stories and other unworldly stories. And Trees, did I leave anything out?
I don't know. We're going to have as many guests as we can have. And
the guests. If you have a story, an encounter story, a photograph. Maybe you found a photograph going through grandma and grandpa's effects or something, and you don't know what it is, or you just want to talk about it, or you want to share your experience. We are a friendly audience. We welcome anybody to come on. We don't judge anybody. We want to hear your stories. We want to see your pictures. So yeah, get a hold of us. And we also like having Stephanie on here. We plan on having more guest panelists on to give their inputs on the stories too. And what was the other thing? Oh, and always be ready, because you never know. Like Pragmatic Crystal found out, you may just win something watching the Grassman Chronicles.
Yep.
So we also have some plans, and we're not going to be saying we're giving away a bunch of t-shirts, because that's no fun. We're going to keep you guessing. So you got to watch and stay in the know to see what you might win coming up here in the next couple months. All right. So did I forget anything else? I think that's it.
I think we got it on this episode.
I do have some stats I wanted to share real quick before we go. As far as the giant squid goes, there are reports of them exceeding 18 meters in total length. However, the ones that have actually been verified are 13 meters, about 43 feet. Now, when you go to the giant octopus, it is what was I? 9 feet, or no, wait, 30 feet or 9 meters.
Oh, yeah, 9 meters.
And and then the Humboldt squid, then you're getting to, it's around 4 to 5 feet long, about the size of a on the shorter side, let's say, not really tall human being. You'd be a Humboldt squid. So there's the numbers I had just to share.
And 30 foot is around what, like telephone pole height, to get a kind of an everyday example.
A story is about 10 feet. So
yeah, about a 3-story house.
A 3-story house is 30 feet. So one of these octopus, if you stretched it from end to end, the tentacle could be at the roof and the other one would be on the ground. So that can almost wrap the side of a chunk of the side of your house. So yeah, it can surely wrap around you.
Yeah.
And ARs, I see ARs stopping through and Tuck's stopping through. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, AR.
A whole bunch of people stopping through. And like as Tree says, I think that wraps it up. So, like I said, links for Trees and Stephanie will be in the description. Make sure you check them out and subscribe to them. And thanks for joining us as we explored sea monsters on the Grassman Chronicles. We hope to see y'all next month for the Halloween episode of the Grassman Chronicles. And until then, keep those cameras at the ready. Watch the skies, watch the woods, watch the lakes. And if you capture something, get a hold of us. Take care, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.